So please join me in welcoming an alum who is dedicated to giving back to our students, the department, and the university, Val Boreland.
I actually thought it was going to be easy to follow the student speakers, but you were both very lovely, and now I'm very nervous. I would like to thank Professor Douglas for inviting me to speak at today's ceremony. It is truly an honor. And while I am being paid to be with you here today, I promise it still would have been an honor to appear for free. Oh, what? Oh, I'm not getting paid? Well, let me understand this. Rutgers University paid reality star Snooki $32,000 to speak at their school. I guess I just assumed that I, too, a Michigan graduate no less, would also be paid. No? Okay. What if I gave you a JWoww discount? Okay. What about a chapati? Can I just get a chapati? She'll give me a chapati. Okay, faculty, parents, friends, and most importantly, class of 2011 graduates. Again, I am honored to be with you here today. I must admit I was humbled to be asked to speak at your graduation. When I first received the invitation from Professor Douglas, I thought for sure she was asking me to use my connections at Comedy Central to arrange for Jon Stewart or Stephen Colbert to come speak. I immediately started thinking about how I was going to break it to her that I probably would not be able to make that happen. But then I realized she was, in fact, inviting me to be your keynote speaker. Then a new fear manifested. I knew when the students heard that their speaker was from Comedy Central, the expectation to be funny would be overwhelming. So let me set the bar really low. I promise I will not be as funny as John or Stephen would have been. But I do promise to be funnier than tomorrow's keynote speaker. Self-proclaimed nerd, Governor Rick Snyder. I must say I feel much better being the warm-up act this year than I would have been for last year's Big House speaker. Before I continue, I want to let the students know that I've checked into the Michigan Theater at Foursquare. And if anyone wants to tweet about my speech, you can tweet me at Val Boreland. I started a topic this morning with #MichiganGraduation. If enough of us tweet, we might be able to make that a trending topic today. Now, most of the non-graduates here probably have no idea what I'm talking about right now. And there is a simple explanation for that. You're just really, really old. In all fairness, I'm not that young myself. I actually can't believe it's been 19 years since I graduated from Michigan. While we are different generations, there are many similarities between us. For example, graduates, by your applause, please tell me how many of you texted a friend or family member today? How many of you tweeted today? How many of you are drunk right now? Oh, really? Just me on that one? I'm glad I shared. But one thing that is definitely different is that your generation has grown up in a world where communication is generated and consumed in a way we could have never imagined when I was a student in the communication school here at Michigan. Back then, MySpace was the area of your dorm room that your roommate was not allowed to touch. Photoshop was the store where you dropped off the film from your camera to be developed. Online dating would have been the conversation you had with a cute boy or girl when online at Rick's. And back then, a hashtag was something you probably would use to label your drugs. Back in those days, communication studies was considered to be an easy major. Business, pre-law, and pre-med were the obvious choice of concentration for overachievers and go-getters. But we live in a world where communication is a thriving and lucrative industry. We Google information, we Netflix movies, we read books on our iPads. And right now, there is a college student somewhere inventing the next digital tool or gadget that we'll be using within 5 years. That student could even be one of you. That would mean sitting in this room right now is the next accidental billionaire, the moniker given to the creators of Facebook. My generation is playing catch-up on these forms of communication. You all have grown up with them, and more importantly, you are For me, television was the medium I was always fascinated with. Some of my greatest memories include moments in front of a TV. I remember when I was 9, watching Saturday morning cartoons when my younger brother almost burned the house down. I remember being at summer camp and watching the royal wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana. I remember as a teenager watching the '86 Mets win the World Series. Sadly, that's the last time they won. I remember in the summer of '94 coming home after seeing the movie Speed, a movie about a bus racing down the streets of Los Angeles, and turning on my TV and seeing a white Ford Bronco racing down the streets of Los Angeles with O.J. Simpson in the backseat. And more recently, I remember watching as Barack Obama delivered his victory speech after winning the presidential election in 2008. These, of course, are just highlights. There are so many others, both trivial and significant. So you can imagine how lucky I feel to be working in an industry that I idolized for my entire life. When I was a child, there was something called the TV Guide, a small book that had every network schedule in it and described each show. It wasn't like it is today, where you can just press a button on the remote and see what you're watching and what's on next. Unless, of course, you had a younger sibling like I did, then you always had your own human remote control. Each week, that TV Guide would arrive in the mail, and I would go through it and use a highlighter to label what I was going to watch each night. Looking back, it totally makes sense why I didn't have any dates growing up. But what I didn't realize at the time was that I was laying the groundwork to what would one day be my profession. Now, as a programming executive, I get to choose what goes on air. Of course, there is a lot of analysis and research that goes into making each decision. But more times than not, I'm using that instinct that I developed as a child to determine the best time slot for a program. I find it exhilarating to know that I am responsible for shaping the network, the direction, the brand, and ultimately the success. I can undoubtedly say I have my dream job.